Hello to all of my freaks of nature. I am back at it again this lovely Friday to bring you another not-so-lovely case. And it pains me to say that I don't think this case will ever be solved. I don't mean to be so negative, but when you hear it, I think you'll understand why. So from 2005 to 2009, 8 women went missing from Jennings, Louisiana. All of them knew each other. All of them hung out together, and they would all be assaulted, killed, and dumped along canals or back roads. Now, even though all of these women had a similar drug and criminal background, I won't go into too much detail on it. These women meant much more to their friends and family, and regardless of where they came from, they still deserve justice. After 19 years, these cases remain cold and unsolved, with different suspects being questioned and arrested, but never charged. This is the story of the Jeff Davis 8. It was May 20th, 2005, when a fisherman spotted what he thought was a mannequin floating in a drainage canal on the East Fork of the Grand Marais. After he noticed the flies swarming, it was clear it wasn't a mannequin. It was a decomposing, half-clothed female. The body was identified as 28-year-old Loretta Chason from Jefferson Davis Parish, who went missing on May 17th. Her body was located right off Highway 1126. The last time anyone saw Loretta, she was getting into a vehicle with a man named Frankie Richard, a known drug dealer in the area, and the manner of Loretta's death was ruled a homicide, though I never found the cause. Then on June 17th, less than 30 days later, another body of a woman was found in a drainage canal in Jennings, Louisiana. This turned out to be 30-year-old Ernestine Patterson of Jefferson, who went missing on June 16th, and her body was found by froggers off of Highway 102. She was located only 6 miles from where Loretta was found. Patterson's cause of death was exsanguination after her throat had been cut, and she also had a bruise on one of her hands, suggesting that she fought her attacker. She also had major bruising and trauma to her face. I read in my research that Patterson and Loretta actually knew each other and frequently hung around the same areas. The police ended up arresting 2 men in connection with Patterson's murder. Byron Jones and Lawrence Nixon were arrested for the assault and murder of Patterson, but were later let go after all charges were dropped, which I find odd considering Nixon's wife had told police she saw the 2 men carry a garbage bag out of the house, and the bag had blood coming out of it, but the DA's office decided that they weren't going to prosecute. And then on March 18th, 2007, another woman was found. This time, the body was located in the Southwestern Canal, which crosses LA Highway 99. The body was identified as 21-year-old Kristen Lopez. Kristen, just like the first 2 victims, was working as a prostitute. And just like in Patterson's case, there were 2 suspects who were arrested in connection with Kristen's homicide, Frankie Richard and his niece Hannah Connor. But again, they were later released. In Kristen's case, there was a man by the name of Warren Gary, the chief investigator in the Jeff Davis 8 case, who purchased a vehicle from a woman named Connie Silver, who was a convicted criminal. This truck is suspected to have carried the body of Kristen to its dumping site. After dumping Kristen's body, Warren had the truck cleaned before selling it, and when police finally got their hands on the truck, the sheriff, Ricky Edwards, said that any lab results they received came back negative. Neither Connie nor Warren were ever charged, and they said that they could never prove that Warren was the one who drove the truck, which I think is just complete bullshit. Just 5 months after the murder of Kristen, Sheriff Edwards, along with many others, were sued for covering up the assault of a female inmate, an assault that one of Sheriff Edwards' officers committed, a man named Mark Ivory. Kristen was also a witness to a police shooting. In 2005, police shot and killed a drug dealer named Leonard Crochet and another man named Alvin Lewis, who was the brother-in-law of Loretta Chason, the first victim. A grand jury investigated the shooting and determined there was no probable cause for a charge of negligent homicide against police, despite a Louisiana State Police investigator concluding that Crochet was unarmed when he was shot. Some townspeople believed that the police had killed many of the victims because of what they knew about the shooting of Leonard Crochet. So as you can see, there seems to be a pattern with law enforcement in this case, and unfortunately it doesn't end there. Next, the body of 26-year-old Whitney Dubois was discovered in the morning hours on May 12, 2007. She was found nude, and unlike the last victims, her body was abandoned on a rural road near the intersection of Earl Duhan and Bobby Road. Whitney was known to do drugs and, again, like the others, worked as a sex worker. Whitney had been beaten in the face to the point where she was unrecognizable, and she was last seen heading to the home of Frankie Richard. On May 29, 2008, the fifth victim, a woman named Laconia Chantel Brown, nicknamed Muggy, was found on the side of East Rocca Road, which is the same road that turns into County Road 1126, where Patterson's body was located. This road also intersects with LaCour Road, where another victim would later be found. Some people also thought it was a weird coincidence that the police gun range is also on Rocca Road. In Miss Brown's case, her family said she felt as though she was going to be the next victim. She told her family she knew she would be killed, but she continued to go out at night, and she was last seen by her family before leaving, saying she was going to a friend's house for dinner. At her autopsy, it was noted that her body had been doused in bleach either before or after she was killed. It seems as though she was found in a pink and white shirt, but on further inspection, they noticed that the shirt had once been pink and was now dyed, like half of it was, stained, like somebody had poured bleach on it. And the cause of death was ruled as an undetermined homicide. On August 29, 2008, the soon-to-be sixth victim, Crystal Zeno, a 24-year-old woman, was last seen alive at the Phillips 66 gas station in Jennings, and she was using the phone to call law enforcement. It had been reported that she'd made multiple attempts to inform law enforcement about the individual responsible for the deaths of the other girls, but nobody listened to her. And Crystal was found on September 11, 2008 by a hunter. The body was completely decomposed, nothing but bones, and it was lying near a dry canal in the woods on LaCour Road. It was revealed that over a year later, a witness claimed to have seen three men leaving the woods and getting into a parked vehicle around the time of the murder. This information was reportedly passed on to Chris Myers of the district attorney's office, but according to a relative of Kristen, this official report could never be located. It basically disappeared, like it never existed. Crystal's cousin, Sarah Benoit, told a reporter that all of the victims knew each other. They all hung out and they all did drugs together. And just before Crystal's death, she told her family she was slinging dope for a local dealer. And some speculate that this could be Frankie Richard. On November 2nd, 2008, 17-year-old Brittany Gary went missing, who was the cousin of Kristen Lopez and the best friend of Laconia. She was last spotted at a Family Dollar in Jennings. This Family Dollar was across the street from the Phillips 66 gas station where a few of the other victims were last spotted. Brittany's mother stated that the shopping trip should have only taken a half an hour, and when she tried to call Brittany, she didn't get a response. On November 15th, Brittany's body was found concealed in some brush off Keystone Road, again right next to County Road 1126, and this marked her the seventh victim found. An autopsy showed that her body, like Miss Brown's, was also doused in bleach and had been placed in a freezer before she was dumped. Law enforcement stated that there was only one set of surveillance cameras in that area and that they, for some reason, weren't working that day, just conveniently. The final eighth victim in this case was found on August 19th, 2009, around 2 a.m. by some lawn care workers. This was 26-year-old Nicole Guillory. Her body was lying in an embankment on Interstate 10. This location is near Egan, and her remains were found between mile markers 73 and 74. She was badly decomposed, so the cause of her death is unknown. Nicole's mom told OxygenTrueCrime that Nicole also feared she would be killed just like the others, and she voiced concerns to her mom that she would not make it to her next birthday. Nicole also expressed to her mom that police were connected to the murdered woman before she was found dead. Why? Because Nicole was another woman who was assaulted and beaten inside the local jail before her death. Now, law enforcement's efforts to solve these cases were questionable at best. Search warrants were carried out at several residences, and many individuals were interrogated, but it appears that there was an attempt to conceal these cases. Although I'm not suggesting that all officers in this case were dishonest, witnesses nearby observed several officers engaging in inappropriate behavior. Additionally, there was all of this noticeable failure on the part of higher-ranking officials. Multiple officers were spotted at known drug houses. Whether this was on or off duty, we're unsure. All of the victims relayed information about the cases to law enforcement before their deaths. Multiple officers were said to be clients of the victims. Multiple female inmates claimed to have been assaulted during their time in jail. The chief investigator, Warren Gary, was said to be the one who dumped Kristen Lopez's remains. Warren Gary was also spotted by a witness at the home of Hannah Connor, who was Frankie Richards' niece and was a suspect in the Kristen Lopez murder. Sheriff Edwards and Frankie Richard were spotted several times talking in a vehicle parked near a cane field on LaCour Road. A witness said they saw this happen on more than one occasion. On the morning of November 9th, 2008, 6 days before Brittany's body was found, 2 police officers observed a dark vehicle on LaCour Road. The vehicle quickly drove away when the officers noticed, but did not pursue it. There is speculation that the individuals in the vehicle may have been Warren Gary and Frankie Richard. It is noteworthy that Brittany's body was discovered on the opposite side of town shortly after this incident. Some theorize that if the truck contained her remains, the perpetrator may have attempted to dispose of the body in his usual area, but had to relocate when they were startled. In the days after the disappearance of Brittany Gary, Sheriff Edwards released a statement saying that because this victim led a high-risk lifestyle of drugs and prostitution, he was not sending out a search party to search for Brittany. Town residents and outsiders suspected a conspiracy by law enforcement to hide the culprits behind the deaths, but Edwards consistently denied any misconduct by the department. Then, there was a woman by the name of Sheila Comeau, who was found beaten and near death in 1998, 6 years before Loretta Lewis was found. Sheila also ran a high-risk lifestyle, unquote, and was from the same area, and she was also found in similar circumstances. Sheila died a year later in the hospital due to severe trauma. Law enforcement never connected her with the Jeff Davis 8, and to this day, her case remains unsolved. Unrelated to law enforcement negligence, I found a few other details in relation to the Jeff Davis 8. So Brittany was spotted getting into a car on the last night she was alive, and the man driving the car was said to be Danny Barry, who worked for the sheriff's office. It was said that he was into BDSM and liked to beat up and torture the inmates, just like Mark Ivory. Whether or not Brittany knew him personally is unknown. In November of 2016, Gary Warren was 64 years old when he was robbed and murdered by his grandson. Frankie Richard died at the age of 64 on March 22, 2020. Unfortunately, that is where this tragic story ends for these 8 victims and their loved ones. Many have since passed on without ever having closure. If you have any information in relation to these cases, please contact the Jennings Police Department tip line at 337-275-9002, or you can place an online tip at www.tips.fbi.gov.